Hello and welcome to another My NT Marriage video. About 18 years in, we saw another counsellor, Counsellor Deb, and she was a major eye-opener. When we were seeing her, my husband straight out said that he had told me that he would respect me more if I was achieving more with myself, and that he didn't like me enough to meet my needs. So kudos for him for speaking his truth. However, he was also still telling her that everything sucked in the relationship because I wouldn't do housework good enough, well enough, often enough. He was still on that train of thought. So we had our first session with her. It was a joint session, and she starts, with the basics of how long have you been together and what are your issues. And as he's talking to her about the house, I was sitting there, what I think was relatively stony face, just sitting there listening, but I might have been pulling a face of some description, who knows. Either that or she's just incredibly perceptive, because she turns to me and she said, "Let me guess, there's nothing wrong with your house." And I instantly liked her. I was like, this lady is switched on. She gets it. She knows exactly what's going on here. And I said to her, correct. There is nothing wrong with the state of our house. And that was just, I don't know, what's the word? Validation. And I admitted out loud for the first time ever in our relationship, because I was in the safety of having that third party present, that my husband, for all of his nitpicking and complaining and crapping on about how bad I am at housework, he's not good at it. And I'd never said that to him. I didn't go around fault finding with him. And he's like, how so? And so is Deb. She's like, how so? And I said, well, he'll vacuum. And he doesn't move the furniture. He doesn't vacuum under the couches. He doesn't vacuum behind a cabinet. He just does what you can see. He doesn't do the skirting. He doesn't dust. He doesn't do even nearly as half a good a job as I do. And yet he's so set on this silly bandwagon of his, of I am crap at housework. Never, ever, ever clicked that actually I'm better than you. I just don't say anything about it. And I have further admitted to Deb and my husband at this point in time that he was really killing off the affection and feelings that I had for him. I was getting to the point where I really didn't like him very much, and he was surprised by that. I think he was so busy focusing on how much he disliked me for all of his minor battles that he picked, that it never occurred to him that maybe I don't like you, maybe you're shitting me off, like maybe you're making me miserable and unhappy and I don't like it. He was just so sure. It's just stupid to think about, but he was just so sure I was the irritating one. And this is the counsellor where my husband, I'll say accidentally slipped, because it really was not meant to be a revelation. And when I say accidentally slipped, it's mainly because he doesn't say things and he doesn't remember that he's done and said things. But this was the counsellor that he admitted that he had been exaggerating about people saying they dislike me. So to break the situation down, he had said to me that a whole bunch of his family members had noticed that I'd gained weight. That was I don't know, could have been anywhere from a year to 2 years previously to seeing Counsellor Deb that he'd said that. And when we were in the counselling sessions with her, he admitted that only one person had said it. And if he hadn't told her that, I would have gone around wondering which family members were the ones that said it and being really mistrusting and dubious of them because I thought they were all bagging me behind my back. And it turns out they weren't. Only one person had said something. And so he let that slip in front of her. This is the counsellor that was revealed to. After our joint session, she had a one-on-one with him and then a one-on-one with me. And then she got us both together for the 4th counselling session and summarised what he had said and summarised what I had said. And in my one-on-one with her, we were chatting away and she said to me, "You know what he's doing is verbal abuse, right?" And I said, "Absolutely, I have known that from the beginning. I just needed somebody else to notice that and tell it to him. It's what I have been wanting since the beginning." So when she gets the two of us together, she says that to him. And it was the first time that he had been told, I think by anyone. I don't even know if I was telling him he was abusive at this stage. I feel like I would have been. But anyway, it was the first time somebody else had said that what you're doing is verbal abuse. And I think that was quite enlightening and eye-opening for him. But when she started to summarise what he had said to her, it was all about the housework. That was it. It was this barrage of how crap I am at housework, and that was all he had to say to her. There was no, my wife calls me names, she treats me like shit, she's not meeting my needs, these are my needs she's not meeting. It was just that I was crap at housework, and if I would just be better at housework, all would be well. And I was shattered. I was sitting there listening to him, years and years and years of him crapping on about the housework. And here he is telling this new counsellor again how bad I am at it, and it was the only thing he had to say that sucked about his relationship, and it wasn't even a fact. So I was really dejected. When we left that counselling session, I said nothing in the car. Although when we get in the car, he says, "I don't know why she was talking about housework. That's not even what I said." And I was thinking, bullshit, you know, sure mate, whatever. She just made that up and it just happened to sound like exactly what you would have said to her, but... So I didn't speak. I was very quiet in the car on the way home. When we got home, I did my usual, when I'm really, really depressed, I go straight into the bedroom, hop under the covers and lay there for hours. And I slept, and I cried, and I thought, what am I going to do? And it was after that session that I decided to do the 2 weeks of doing everything to see if it made a difference. And so that's that experiment housework video that I spoke about much earlier on. And that was when I had the idea. I thought, I'm going to test this guy's theory. He's so sure the relationship sucks because I'm not doing a good enough job. I'll do an immaculately impressive job and see if it makes a difference. And of course it didn't. When Deb and I had our one-on-one and she outwardly said that what he's doing is verbal abuse, she'd said to me, "You know what he's doing is verbal abuse, right?" And I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And then she says, "How on earth do you tolerate it? Like, how have you managed for all these years?" Because she could picture him. She's already had her one-on-one with him. She knows what he's talking about. She knows the things he's saying. And she was absolutely baffled. She's like, "How have you not gone insane?" And I laughed a little bit, a bit of a chuckle. And I said to her, I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe him. It's his idea of who I am. I know it's not who I am. I know what he's saying is not true. I know what he's saying is absolutely invented and it's in his head and it's imagined. And that's how I cope. He's not telling my truth. He's telling his own truth. And yeah, it drives me nuts that he's on and on and on about housework. But I know that he's not describing me and that there's something wrong with him. There's something going on with him, inside him, and how his brain works. And it's nothing to do with me. And that floored her. She looked amazed, to be honest. She was like, wow, that's just incredible. But I just wasn't taking on what he said. I wasn't making it mean. I suck. If anything, and this is what I'd said to him and her in our next session, it's making me dislike him. The more he talks negatively about me, the more I think, I don't like you very much. And I had said that to him and to her. Whenever he speaks, I find myself saying, I want to love you, but geez, you're making it hard. And I don't like you very much. That was what I was thinking. And that, as I said, surprised my husband, because I don't think that he realised the effect that it was having on me was not the effect that I suspect he wanted. That being said, I don't think that he actually knows that that's really what's going on, or even if that's going on. So what I'm getting at is, there are some people who get in relationships and put their partners down, and they try to make their partner feel really crap and little and lowly and dodgy and, you know, scum of the earth almost, and that they're the best thing that you can ever get. He doesn't operate that way. It may be what he's doing in some sort of recess in his mind, but he is 100% not aware enough to know that that's a thing to do in the first place. He's not manipulative. He's not very good at being manipulative. He's not doing it to manipulate me. He really thinks he's speaking his truth. If only I just did housework all the time, come on, get up, do it, stop stopping, don't stop, don't rest, keep going. That's his truth. He thinks in his mind that because he's action man, I'm meant to be action woman and never taking a break. And so he's not doing it to make me feel like I'm some slithering snake and he's the best that I can get. And so that's what I mean by that. After my one-on-one with Deb, my husband asked me what we talked about, and I told him. It was the first time, as I said, that he'd heard it be called verbal abuse, because she'd said it to me in my one-on-one session. She said it to him later. And then when I asked him what he'd said, he pulled the, oh, I can't remember and I don't know trick and refused to tell me. And after that, I kind of just stopped talking to him about things, because I thought, you tricked me. Thought we were going to be having a backwards and forwards conversation where I tell you something, you tell me something, but no, it was just him getting information out of me and then shutting down. That annoyed me. I don't know if that's a particularly typical Aspie trait or not, but it's certainly something that my husband does quite a lot of. And so these days when he asks me questions, I tend not to tell him anything unless he goes first and opens up to me. Everything changed with me after her. For a starter, he demanded we stop seeing her, probably because she was going down the you're verbally abusive route, and that he didn't like that. But he actually said to me, we don't need to see her anymore, I know how to drive this train. That's a quote, that's a direct quote. And I was thinking, good Lord. Suddenly he's a train driver. Lord help us. And things went downhill very quickly after we stopped seeing her. They always do. For some reason, we'll see somebody, they'll be speaking to us, they'll make a lot of sense, they'll get us to do bits and pieces, such as 10-minute conversations with each other and such, and then we stop seeing them, and the world turns upside down again. So yeah, he's not very good at driving the train. But the other reason that things were changing for me was, it was around this time that the things that he was saying were really just killing off my feelings for him. So it was around this time that he told me that he thought I would be jealous of some woman he was crushing on, as well as telling me he doesn't like me enough to meet my needs, and he'd respect me more if I'd achieved something with myself. And I'd said to him some months later all of the things that we have because of my input in achieving them. But once the statements are said, the damage is done. And so by this stage, I mean, we're 18 years into the relationship by now, so at the start he would say the odd, you know, annoying comment, like, "You're annoying." He was always telling me I was annoying. And then it just progressively got crappier, you know, because we're now 18 years in. He's picking all these battles. So to him now, 18 years in, he thinks like this relationship is just terrible and the end of the world has come. So he was just getting yuckier and yuckier. And so by the time we saw Counsellor Deb, he had said a few things that had really just kind of been like sticking the knife in and given a good old twist. So by this stage, I was really starting to feel like I was falling out of love with him. That's how I would describe it. I was feeling quite resentful, hateful, frustrated, annoyed. Yeah, not very loving at this stage. And it was around this time that I started to completely back down and back off. After I did that 2-week experiment, and he wasn't more loving, because I'd finally met his love language, which is acts of service, I just started to withdraw. And one of our other counsellors later on called it stonewalling, but I really just feel like it was a safety mechanism. I just reached this point where I was getting so little joy out of everything. And I'd been trying so hard, communicating, flirting, being fun, being spontaneous, cooking great food. I mean, I was just trying to be the best wife I could be, and it was just netting me zero. I shouldn't say zero, it was certainly not zero. I would have left if I was getting nothing out of the relationship. But it was just at the point now where I was, I suppose, mentally and physically exhausted. I just felt like I just really couldn't do it anymore. And anytime he'd have a new shot at me, it'd just be like daggers. You know, it was like, just stop. I don't care. I don't like you enough to even care about that thing that you're raising with me now. So I did shut down after we stopped seeing Counsellor Deb. Things did start changing for me within myself. He's often telling me to stop looking back at the past, to stop bringing up the past, to stop thinking about the past. He had some guy at work make some dumb joke about how my wife's an archaeologist, she's always digging up the past. It's kind of a funny joke, but it's annoying as well. And I was just really bothered by this stage because so much had happened, and he thinks that he can just do and say whatever in the hell he wants and I will be okay. And I'm not bringing up the past or raising past issues and things like this to have shots at him. Usually he'll say something and I'll say, "You've been doing that for years," and he'll go like, "How so?" And then I'll talk about some things. Or he'll do something and then say, you know, "I'm just doing it now." And I'll say, "No, you've been doing this for ages." So it's not that I'm specifically coming up to him and just raising past issues. aside from, I suppose, if I was triggered by something he'd said that related to something in the past. But I was so frustrated by this stage because I'd been asking him to stop. I had been constantly telling him, look, you're badgering of me, the fault finding, the critiquing, the putting down, those hurtful, crappy statements you make where you just haven't thought before you spoke. They're ruining the relationship. They're killing off my love and affection for you. And he just refused to listen. He couldn't fathom that I could predict that this was going to be the outcome. And so he just kept going. And so finally I reached this point where, for me, it really felt like he just broke me. It was like, you know, I'm a stick, I've tolerated so much, and then all of a sudden snap, and I just broke. And after that I was just not sweet and nice and caring as much as I used to be. I started not talking to him. Like, it used to be that we'd sit in the car and I'd raise a conversation. Now I would just stare out the window and not bother. Or I would think of something and I would go over to where he was and chat to him about it and then go back to where I was. I stopped doing things like that. I started sitting separately from him on the couch. I started sleeping with a bolster in the bed between us. I just withdrew. It's the easiest way to say it, is I just withdrew. And it was interesting in that the effect that my withdrawal had on the relationship further down the track, which I'll get to in another video. The one good thing that did come from seeing Counsellor Deb and her saying what he was doing was verbal abuse, and me doing that 2-week I'm doing everything housework experiment, my husband stopped critiquing as much as he was. It wasn't 100% letting things go. He still does say the odd thing now. I think that he just kind of can't help himself, but he at least tries to catch himself out. But he did let go of the housework. When we were in the car and I was really quiet and I wouldn't talk to him, then I'd gone to bed and woke up. When I spoke to him after, he said something along the lines of, oh, I suppose you've realised you want to leave me now. And so I think that that had an interesting effect on him, because he did stop critiquing as much as he used to. I would say that that was the beginning of the end of our housework saga. So yeah, Deb, an eye-opener. She changed the relationship in some way. The whole thing changed me in some way. I did become distant, and that changed him to a degree, because I think that he didn't like how distant I became. And so yeah, another counsellor and another result. I find that each time we see a counsellor we get specific results, and we don't know what results we're going to get, if any. But I have found that with each counsellor, improvements have been made somehow, because you have that third party interjection saying, look, this is what I'm seeing from the outside. And that helps things sink in, especially since I'm not very good at reasoning with him. Anyway, that's our next counselling session. Again, comment below if you have seen counsellors and if they worked for you. And if you are in an NT-ND marriage or relationship, is your partner willing to see a counsellor? I think that it is very beneficial to go and see one, because I don't feel like it's something that a neurotypical wife can do by herself. I think it's just too much above our pay grade, as they say. So it's something that I would recommend you look into. But, you know, you have to convince your other half to want to go, of course. Anyway, that's me, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it.